G'day guys, it's Brett Finch and welcome to Uncensored. Thanks for joining my podcast. We'll be interviewing plenty of rugby league identities, all the heavy hitters, plenty of sports stars. I hope you enjoy it. Brett Finch Uncensored is proudly brought to you by PointsBet. Check out PointsBet's great odds and offers. Download the PointsBet app today and gamble responsibly. For my first guest, I had to go back all the way to the start to my childhood hero, the great one, former Roosters captain, my former captain and league legend, Freddie Fittler. Freddie was awesome to talk to you. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Welcome to Brett Finch Uncensored, first episode. And, well, what better way to start? My childhood hero, former captain, New South Wales great and current coach, Freddie Fittler. How you going, Bradley?
Good, Brett.
How's life? How's the family?
Honestly, at the moment, if I had to rate it, it's an absolute 10 I've got. The way my job is at the moment, so I don't have to do a lot of the meetings and a lot of the, my job entails going to a lot of luncheons and a lot of dinners, and I don't have to do any of that. So I've had so much time with my kids, and I drive Demi to school every day, and we have a hell of a laugh. We go down past Marie's shop, and Marie gets us food. So it's like normal, but not at home. And like Demi's a 16-year-old girl, so her life's so interesting at the moment. Yeah. It's unbelievable. So just listening to what's going on in their little world's quite bizarre. And then my young bloke, I see him on weekends and just chat to him a bit over texting and stuff, and he boards now during the week and comes home on weekends. So I'm just at one of those, it's just a real great time of life where my job's, they're not that hard. You got to make sure you do your prep, and I still love it a lot, so it comes quite easily. And I've got to say, and then Marie and I are getting on great. The less time we spend together, well, the less time you spend together, the better you go.
Are you the cool dad, or are you the dad that embarrasses them and you think it's hilarious, but they might not so?
I'm not sure. You'd have to ask them. I think.
I reckon it's not hurting Zach too much to have the surname Fittler strutting around school. He'd be pretty confident.
Well, mate, if you saw Zach, he's 6 foot at the moment. He's 14 and he's looks like a man. Yeah. So I don't think, with or without the name, I think he's going
he's going all right.
I think he's going all right.
That just helps.
And his mum looks good, so he's got sort of the
good
Greek
genes.
skin,
Yeah, the nice tan. Unlike me, it looks like I've been sunbaking on the moon. My neck shade's invisible. I'm translucent. Mate, you've still got it. I turned the telly on the other day, the ResMed ad. Mate, they're paying you to pretend you're asleep. That's how good you're laying in bed doing a crossword and asleep, and you would have got 50 grand or something. You're the best. How's the beds? They're good beds. You look like you're asleep. You've done a good job.
They're not a bed. No one really understands the ad at the moment. I think hopefully this is a job that lasts forever. Finchy.
What were you thinking when they say, "Look, we want to pay you to do an ad"? What do I have to do? Just lay there and shut your eyes, or do a crossword, or Sudoku?
We try and teach people to sleep. Sweet.
Well, I had trouble with that for a few years after I retired, sleeping.
Let me tell you, sleep is, there's a deep thinking side to the way I go about things, and sleep is everything. Yeah. Sleep is the most crucial thing, to do with recovery and, getting your brain in order and all that sort of stuff. Sleep's so important. Everyone just neglects it so much. Yeah. ResMed are a company that sort of deal in sort of sleep options. They do pillows. They invented like the sleep apnea machines. So it's an Australian company. It's a really good company, actually. And, it's amazing, the more with the job of coaching and in the commentary and, dealing with kids and talking to kids and, I get a pretty good overview, I think, of society in general. And, I just encourage them to get back to the basics, to think about your sleep, prep your sleep and getting up. Things like hydration, just going back to the absolute basics are just incredible weapons at the moment because everyone's so far away from thinking about basics. So the sleep thing, I sort of now, I don't promote anything unless I pretty much believe in it. No, I've seen you on this Ted's or Ned's. What do you do?
I'm PointsBet. I'll take any job I can get at the moment, Fred. No, I'm PointsBet.
PointsBet, yeah, I've seen your ads. They're fantastic. But I couldn't do gambling because I don't believe in it.
Neither do I, but I didn't believe in it until I had no money, Fred, and I needed a job. I did an ad over. They flew me overseas with Allen Iverson.
That ad?
NBA great.
Yeah, right.
So he's sitting there and everyone's thinking they've flown this bloke. I went over to Charlotte, North Carolina. So they've flown me all the way over there. So they're thinking, shit, this bloke must be.
He must be.
He'd be
good,
the best. And I'm sitting there, yeah, I'm one of the greatest rugby league players ever. We'll touch on it a bit later. But talking about sleep, and you in the decade before I played with you and I come through. The way we treated our bodies when you're talking about sleep and hydration, you'd hammer yourself on the field in a big game, and then the last thing you'd do in the next 24 hours was have much sleep or hydration. Yeah. None of it.
We just indulged in all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and in saying that, when I look back, we indulged in training. We loved that feeling of being around the boys, and we took that to the next level as well. We were so close. Footy teams were so close back then. They spend mostly less time together. But the time they spent together, it wouldn't have mattered what was going on. There couldn't have been a war going on down the road. You wouldn't have known because, I just remember every team I felt like I was involved in, I just loved it. Wanted to be there, wanted to train, and sometimes adding, the good times engaged in, go and get on the drink. And, we had some incredible
great times.
We had blokes who were really good at it. But on the other flip side, we trained very well. We trained hard and, we concentrated and, everyone seemed like they wanted to be there. I can't ever remember players not wanting to be at training, and I think once you got that battle won, you can nearly do anything else. It doesn't matter if you had, what you're doing to your body.
I think it matters now, let me tell you. Let's take it back to the beginning. What was Freddie Fittler like? What was a young Bradley Fittler like out at Penrith growing up?
Well, I grew up in Liverpool, place out of Liverpool, and I think where I grew up, everyone loved footy and cricket. I was good at both.
Of course you were.
Well, life's been pretty easy actually. We had nothing, but we also didn't know what was going on in the eastern suburbs. Yeah. But we didn't have phones and information getting shoved down our throat. Yep. So we were so happy with what we're doing. I can't ever remember in my life not being happy. There's a few times where there was some tricky situations to deal with, but I've just been happy the entire time. And whether that outlook started young and everything came pretty easy, or that's just my outlook, I'm not really sure. But
I think a bit of both.
A bit of both. But I love growing up where I did. It was incredible. We were so free. We just the streets were ours. Whether it was a skatey, a push bike, kicking a footy. I look at my own kids now and just think, we had such a much better life, the freedom we had as children. Now, parents are paranoid and, everyone thinks there's a pedophile around the corner waiting for your kids. It's just gone crazy. Yeah. So
you debuted at a young age. It was a pretty good forward pack to come in. You had some wild childs out there, some tough hombres to come in behind. That must have filled you with confidence.
That's why I look at kids now and they sort of, they look at the money and they're looking at different scenarios instead of what the forward pack is. I didn't know at the time how valuable that was until a few of those players left. And, just after 92, we faded away at Penrith and played a couple of years there where we didn't make semis and we came 10th and 11th. And that was hard work. The first, I started in 89, 90, 91. We were in semis, grand finals and winning all the time. And, you just had to look inside and you had MG and Cardi and Royce was there at the start and you had Barry Walker and Cole Vandervoort and just good, honest people who just work so hard. And then you had Brandy just, setting it all up for you. It was just gold. So, it's not until you're older and then you're in that position where you're sort of looking at young kids coming through that you realise, wow, these blokes were so good to me. And in those days, I like your dad in a way because they sort of they enjoyed your company because I was a bit young and wild. And then, there was a time there where I remember I wore an earring after the game and they all just looked at me funny and I thought, all right, I'm sweet here. And we walked over to the club and a couple of them held me down while one of them ripped the earring out and just said, we don't cope with earrings. No,
so I never wore the earring didn't come back. Did you know, obviously, you burst onto the scene, one of the greatest teenagers the game's ever seen. I've never known you to be a big head. I've never known. When you first come on, you must have known you're pretty good, you're something special, or you're better than the average kid your age.
Well, I think it was what I was used to doing in my age. So I went playing under 17s to playing first grade. And in that game, the same things happened in under 17s game. So I thought, well, wow, this is all right. And it just sort of kept going. It was, we played in semi-finals that year and we got beat a few times. So it wasn't as though everything went my way. But, within 6 months, I knew what it was about. I knew I was good enough. The fact is I wasn't a small kid, so I didn't have to deal with any sort of size issues. And apart from that, from game one, I was confident. I played in a reserve grade game, my first game, and I scored 2 tries, and we played against a team that was winning the comp. And from the first time I had to defend against a man and tackled him and got tackled and realised, well, there's not that much different to when you're, like playing in sort of junior reps and all that sort of stuff. I was just confident, so I never thought about it again. I just kept playing.
91 grand final, obviously massive.
Yeah,
For the Penrith area and
the whole
and
Penrith
in a
area.
huge game. Canberra going for 3 in a row. It was a great battle. Obviously, Royce's last game for the club, he gets 2 meat pies.
Yeah, what about his game?
MG was on fire.
Yeah.
I remember it actually. This is where I was probably 11 years old, and I remember seeing there was a piece on Royce before the game. It was his last game, and I was like, you know what, Canberra's won 2 in a row. I was going for Penrith, and then see this young spiky-headed kid with the big left foot step who I think you put Brad Izzard away, ball around the back.
Yeah.
It was just for the try, but that game was not only massive for the Penrith area, but the game itself was an absolute cracker.
Yeah, we had 2 good games. The year before we played them, got beat, and remember came down the grand final breakfast, and we just stuffed it up. And we got on the drink, and it was like a Wednesday night, which we weren't that accustomed to doing. And by the time we got to the game, and we're pretty competitive. And
It's 18-14, I think, wasn't it?
And we could have won. There were chances where we could have won. And then as soon as we walked away from that, we just knew.
Yeah.
The next year, I think we lost very few games, lost about 3 or 4 games, 4 games possibly. And we're lucky to actually win a semi-final. Darryl Halligan missed, I think.
North,
missed a heap of goals. And
doesn't happen too often.
No.
Sure.
And then and got to the grand final. And I think we were down at half time, but it felt like we knew.
Yeah.
And they were so good. MG.
He was unbelievable, wasn't he?
Oh,
Even 91 was a massive year.
He never got the credit, He never got the credit for that. For a couple of years, he was the man.
Yeah. Isn't it good? And you played with Moz as well, Adrian Morley. Geez, you felt a lot tougher when we played with Moz. It must, MG just, he was ruthless. He just cut a sway through him, didn't he? He was fearless.
Yeah.
He must, for yourself and Brandy and guys like that, geez, that must have given you some confidence playing behind him.
He had the toughest bloke.
Yeah.
That was it. And I remember asking Wayne Bennett the year New South Wales won the Origin. And we're just talking about the Origin and the teams. He goes, well, you've got the toughest couple of blokes. We had Bo Scott and I think Gal. And they were pretty much, they were sort of winning those battles during that time. And, it's funny, when you got the toughest bloke, Hargreaves plays for the Roosters.
Yeah.
He's the toughest.
Yeah.
Papali's coming that way,
Consistently,
Does that end up being the difference, But mate, Jared's been the toughest for a couple of years now. They all try to take him on, and he gets the better of most of them.
You think he'd be sick of it. He's been doing it for about 10 years. It was like Moz.
Especially fighting. You used to try to score tries and stuff. They're got to get in the middle and fight.
But you know what it's like with Adrian Morley. Moz he was the dumbest smart man I've ever known. We'd get him every week going, did you hear what that other front rower said about you? And he'd go, what? I'm going to kill him. Next week, mate, I think he's tougher than you, Moz. What? And he'd go out and try and kill him.
I remember I got a good one with Moz where I used to stand to catch the ball because I was always on the left. Yeah. If they ever kicked at me, I was always with Moz. And I'd just be winding him up, just as they're sort of...
But he was so placid off the field at training. He didn't like the contact.
But that's what you had to do, but
wind him up.
That little bit just before, I'd just be walking back and I'd look down and pick a player and go, mate, that bloke, blah, 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 and talk about how tough he was. And, and then he'd get the ball and try to get behind him and be screaming at him.
I remember Hodjo's 21st, Justin Hodges. We had the
Brisbane?
bye weekend, a few of us single blokes went to Byron first. So there's me, Moz, Rico, Toddy Payton, Toddy Byrne.
Well, all the married ones went to Stradbroke
Island with all the girlfriends. So we're in. I think we're staying at Ginger's house down at Belongil. So we go over and it's like the nude beach just over out the front of Ginger's place.
I've seen the pictures.
And we go, let's have a game of nude cricket. So me and Moz were in bat. Moz come out to bat. It's like he brought his own bat when Moz was nude. It looked like he had the V500, the Master Blaster, where I look like I had one of those replica, autograph bats.
Looking for David Hooks' signature.
Autograph bats. But he was one of the greats. Freddie, early on in your career, you achieved you did achieve everything in the game by 20. Win a comp, Origin, Kangaroo Tour, Test footy by 21. Like that. Looking back now, do you just sit there and go, that's unbelievable when you sit there and think about it? Because you see young kids like young Cooper Johns debuted the other day. 2021, he's debuting. Like a lot of these young kids debut at 2021. Yeah. You'd done it all in the game by 21.
Oh, well, I'd done it all by 19.
19 even better.
So, I went on the tour at 18, played Origin by 18, and played Test matches after the 91 grand final. But it just happened. And a lot of it comes down to playing in a good team to start with. You went out and you were confident. You didn't panic, you didn't fear anyone because you knew those blokes would look after you. And there were some real distinct moments where people came at me and come for me in a game, and they protected you. Yeah. And it was just awesome, that feeling of feeling safe, especially for a young bloke, just to go there on a footy field in those days to feel safe was an amazing feeling.
You would have had a target on your back at times when you're coming through, good young. Young player.
Well, I remember Bruce Maguire in my second game. So I carved up in my first game and, just ran right, basically. Yeah. It was great. And the second game we played, the last game of the year against the Tigers at Leichhardt, packed crowd. There was Ciro, Blocker, Kerry Hemsley, Junior, Bruce Maguire, Kevin Hardwick. That was their forward pack. So... And Bruce Maguire's grabbed me and done something to me, so I thought, because I got put on just after half time, and there's someone had been sent off. There was 3 brawls.
I'll stay on the bench.
Oh, mate. Someone was grabbing their hammy, and they sort of said, Brad, warm up. I'm like, you couldn't.
No, I think he's right. I think you'll be okay. Leave him on there.
There was 2 brawls in the first 10 minutes. Right? The instructions going out to the game to Matt Goodwin was, don't pack the first scrum, just hit blocker. And I'm just in the background going, no. Really? And then, so Bruce Maguire did something. I thought, and early on you sort of got all these things going in your head sometimes. Do I need to stick up for myself? Yeah. What are they trying to do here? And so I leaned forward and headbutted him. And so Brandy kicked the ball downfield.
Is that a good idea?
Anyway, so I've sort of nearly trod off, and he's grabbed me on the way and just grabbed me by the throat and just said, if you ever do that again, I'll kill you. And I went, you know what? Yeah.
That's a good point.
I won't do it. I'll try not to do that again. So,
for a lot of young blokes, when they have success early, motivation can be a factor. Was that at any stage during your career you struggled for motivation or lacked motivation, or your attitude may have just dipped a little?
Well, there's mostly times where I wasn't as fit as I could have been, and I look back and I sort of, whether I regret it or I look back and just think I was a bit stupid, there was times where, whether I was drinking too much or whatever it was, coming back from pre-seasons were, you'd come back overweight from drinking and, partying, and it was a pretty good life for a kid, far out. It was incredible. But the only time motivation waned was in 2001.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I think, when I look back, in 2000, I had this just wonderful year. We got beaten in the grand final, but everything else was just incredible. Yeah. And even to the point of meeting Marie, my life just couldn't get any better. Yeah. And then 2001 was a struggle. We still ended up coming 6, and that was the year I got voted most overrated player, and we got beaten in the Origin.
Well, you only played 100 tests. That's quite overrated.
But we got beaten in the Origin in the last game. Some things happened. Yep. And that was the only time I ever struggled to go to training for a couple of months of that year. And then Graham Murray ended up losing the job, and a lot of people saying, had things to do with the players. It was nothing. It was nothing.
Just the Roosters.
Yeah, just nothing. That's right. See you later. Yeah. And, but, if I ever give myself credit, it was how I handled that off-season. I just made, tweaked about 5 things in my life. The first one was where I lived. Yep. I was living on the beach at Collaroy, travelling in and out, and so I moved back into the city where I loved.
Moved back into the other house.
It wasn't.
You had them all over, actually, north, south.
Yeah. Well, I had Marie. East. She chose. She just went, we're moving.
Where do you want Darwin?
So that was I made a couple of distinct changes. People always sort of say that. I think to anyone, how'd you change it? Actions, you need specifics. So I changed. Address was one of them, and there were some things in my lifestyle. Drinking was another.
Yeah.
Stop drinking, and there were some other things also that I just went, no, that's it. And so that pre-season, I just pretty much turned my whole life. Yeah. And then followed it with 3 years of grand finals. Yeah. So, if I had to do it all again, I don't know if I'd have the willpower to do what I did in the last 3 years at the front because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, and you your energy's a little bit different. You know, you want to indulge and take it all. But I made some big changes.
Yeah.
I give myself. That's if I ever give myself a pat on the back.
Yeah.
It's that pre-season that I just I nailed that.
Yeah. Well, talking about moving to the Roosters, and I've got here how you moved into the city, the Super League war. Like if things were pretty good for you, Brad Fittler, the Super League war financially would have just gone, here we go. Like that's, figures. I think I was in Canberra and the chief executive down there, Kevin Neal, said Mal might have been one of the highest paid players around the early 90s at 150,000.
Yep.
Then the Super League war comes out. Blokes are on $900,000, $1 million, a year, plus sign-ons. Plus if you want to go for a drink, James Backer's going to write you a cheque for 20 grand. Like that's just out of this world. Like, how much did that change life? And like you said, you go from living in Penrith to, is it Kent Street you moved into? Your apartment in Kent Street in the city?
It's the same building I moved back into in 2002.
Oh, well, I remember because I was down at Wallaby Bar, no Cargo Bar, I think, one night. It was about 2 a.m. And obviously I was, you're my captain and hero. I thought I'd send you a text to see if you're awake. You said, go outside, and you're on the telescope out the balcony. I could see you flashing your light up in, and I was down at the Wharf Bar. But, that's a big change in itself. Because you'd still only be when the Super League will break, 23, 24?
I feel like, I was only 20. When I went to the Roosters in 96, I was 24. And...
Geez, that's still young. But I remember at that time, it felt like you'd been around forever because you had, but you're still only a kid.
Yeah. And... nothing seemed to change in my head. Like, obviously the money allows you to do certain things, but, mate, I've never been, it felt like nothing changed. Yeah. And I don't think any of the friends changed, like my address changed. I moved into the city, but I don't know. It's sort of, I never had money as a kid and I was always happy. And then when I got money, I was still happy. And it sort of just doesn't bother me. Yeah. But
if you don't want any, feel free to offload some to me.
Definitely. Well, it does give you options. Yeah. It gives you options. And like where I live at the moment and the block I live on at the moment, it's just awesome. It's
called a suburb, your block. So that's got the same postcode.
It's just very great, and it's the basic things, babe. Me and my daughter get up and we go walking around it every morning, We jump on a trampoline and we do a little bit of training and, I'm incredibly grateful now for a little bit of it because I can see how some people really struggle. It's tough out there. Bills are, nothing's cheap. Yeah. Nothing's cheap. It's hard work. And so I've never really had financial stress. So that's something that I really can't talk about. Like I lived with it as a kid, up until 18. Never had a cent, and it never bothered me. But as an adult, and especially with children, I've never had to worry about money. So I wouldn't quite know what the stress of that's like, which I'm very grateful for.
Well, I'll let you know it's quite stressful, Brad. Mate, the pressure you come to the Roosters. First of all, I want to talk about your relationship with Nick Politis is obviously extremely close. I know when I was there how tight you guys are and still are today. Obviously, him and Gus were a big reason why you went there in the first place.
Well, I remember seeing it. Well, Gus was.
Yeah.
It was Gus. So I didn't know anyone else. I sat in a meeting when Kerry Packer was there and Nick and all that, and I sort of listened to what they were saying, but that had nothing to do with it. Yeah. It was purely Gus, and, at the time when I needed a bit of direction, when I was 17, 18, 19, he was the one that gave me good advice, and most of the time it was about pulling your head into line, train a bit harder, and sharpen up. And most of the time that's what I needed, And once someone said that to me, normally I'd react and make some changes, and away I went. So it was, going to the Roosters was about Gus. Yeah. But I was really grateful to meet people like Nick Politis and Mark Boris and these people and Ginge and, just...
funny story with Ginge. When I go to meet Sticky, Gus, Rico, and Ginge at Clay Valley Hotel on a Sunday when they're trying to sign me. And I don't know who Ginge is. So he turns up with Rico, so I think he's just Rico's mate. And we're sitting there having lunch and we're talking, and Ginge starts chiming in, mate, we think you can do this, dude. And I'm thinking, tell fucking Rico's mate to shut up. Like, why is Rico's mate here? We're talking dollars and this, we're talking how long. Why has Rico just brought his mate along? Because, Ginge was just in the trackies and, you just get around like you're a hobo, I'm thinking, why is this bloke here? We're talking about my future. Yeah. And then when you won the grand final that year, I see him run out on the field. Oh, well, there's the bloke. It's Channel 9. Yeah, but like you said, those guys, and you could see your relationship with those guys when I was there. It was a different level to any other player in the team.
Yeah, I think, well, obviously the fact captain, you Gus, so you sort of, you had the privy to some sort of dinners and different things. But the one thing that I, sort of adored about them is how much they love footy.
Yeah.
They really love footy. I could sit there and I can tell if someone likes the game or someone's playing in the game for different reasons because, I've been doing it since I was 3. I'm now confident enough to actually back my judgment on pretty much most things around footy, and quite willing to back what I believe. Yeah. And they love it. Yeah. They really like footy, and that straight away impressed me. And, the money in that doesn't, you don't give me respect because of money. You've done great in business, but, just the fact is the way you treat people and the way you are and, your strength. And to watch those blokes sit down and talk about footy and be around footy players was, they just loved it. They loved it as much as I did.
Yeah. So we just spoke about the A2 grand final, but for a long time there was a lot of pressure on you to deliver the Roosters a grand final. And Joey sort of had it at Newcastle, but probably not as much as you. There was no rule. You look at the superstars of the game that carried as much burden or as much expectation that, second or third was a failure. You're making semi-finals, like the Roosters, they were pretty pathetic early 90s.
Yeah.
And then you've turned them around straight away, turned them into a semi-final team, and then all of a sudden semi-finals weren't good enough. I remember a few years there, you got bounced out the door, and one you had a cooked groin, you virtually limping around, and it was looked upon as a failure. You're not getting the job done because you weren't winning. It was a different sort of pressure. How did you handle that and then culminated in winning 0-2?
Well, I mostly got to the point of 2001. So we sort of, 96 we got there and got beat by the Dragons. That's when I snapped my groin. Yeah. So I had a total rupture. So that wasn't good. But that season was a good year for us. And then we also, during a few of those periods, we missed our front rows. We had Jason Lowry and Terry Hermanson.
Broken arms. They
used to break, I think in a couple of semis in a row, they broke their arms. So we're going into our biggest games without our front rowers. So that didn't help. But then 97, we got beat by a field goal to go and play in the grand final. We got beat by Manly. Craig Field kicked a field goal to beat us. And then...
Great field goal.
Yeah, 98. It was, I'm trying to think, 98. But 98 and 99 were very similar.
Get Dogs? Or the Dragons?
Well, the Dragons beat us twice to knock us out. I'm not sure.
That might have been 99.
Yeah, it might have been 99, actually. I forget.
98, you got beat by the Broncos in the prelim to the grand final.
Oh, that's right.
Up at ANZ.
Oh, I remember Billy Peden, right at the end of the game, we beat Newcastle up there, and it was a big win. Yeah. Like, they had a pretty good side. So Billy Peden's tackled me and popped me rib cartilage out. And I'm sitting there just going, this is so painful. Yeah. Seriously. And then anyway, so we had Brisbane the week after. We just had the best team. Yeah. 1998 was like their best team, I reckon.
Well, they had 10 internationals. Yeah, they had 10 people in the Australian team that year. Do you reckon they were on the salary cap?
In 2000, I reckon they had more. Because not only had the Australians, they had Kiwi internationals and English. They had the front rower, Harvey Howard, I think.
Yeah, Harvey Howard, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so I went out there and I remember I went to the hospital the night before just to see if I could get some needles to numb the pain. And so they're sticking needles into me ribs at night, and I'm just saying, well, that's not really helping, So I've had, that's it, 5 to 10 needles the night before the game. So I've turned up to that crappy ground, that ANZ. That was awful. And I had another 10 needles in me rib thinking, no, yeah.
Then went on Mad Monday, had another 10 needles.
So went out and we got flogged.
Yeah.
I remember Darren Smith just had a mission. Every time I kicked it or something, which hurt to kick it, he just hit me late. And, they just, It was pretty embarrassing, actually. And
do you ever feel at the time, I know you would never blame any other your teammates. Do you think they lent on you too much or expected you to come up with a big play, which, if the other team could nullify you a little bit, it exposed the team a bit because they relied on you so much?
I never felt like that. I always felt like if we lost, it was my fault.
Yeah, well, that's...
And it normally was, because a lot of the game was about your job was to, create the points. Yeah. And hopefully if you were heavily marked, then we had Adrian Lamb before you turned up. He was a really good player, Lammy, crafty, and so we had enough points to beat everyone. So every time we got beat, I thought it was me. I didn't play good enough. So that was just the way it was. I didn't have to be told.
Yeah. Mate, 02 years win the GF. Obviously, I remember watching it at home. I'd signed for the club. And I thought, oh, shit, you didn't have to win the year before I got there. I'm on the hide than nothing now. But I just remember the iconic, you're walking back to the Roosters crowd, your hands are in the air, and then obviously the interview after the game, I want to thank everyone for making me feel this good. Like, it was just,
that's
at that age, you've won one early, and then 10 years, 11 years later, you've explained the difference there, and your emotions win it.
The 5-year build-up of losing, and expectation and all that sort of stuff. So... that's just sort of pure relief. Yeah. And it's just a good feeling. And, and when you come to the club, we're so motivated. And, you just come at a great time when, we had great company and we trained hard. And, there wouldn't have been a game ever where we didn't try, and try hard. Yeah. If teams beat us, they had to sort of come up with something good. Sometimes we sort of, didn't play as good as other times, but I can't ever remember walking off playing for the Roosters during sort of that 4 or 5 year period where a team would have walked off and said, they didn't have a go today. We're a good footy team.
Yeah, you look at great teams, obviously the Broncos, Raiders, early 90s. The Roosters, we made 4 out of 5 grand finals from 2000 to 2004. We win one comp. That period's not spoken about because you don't win 2, but to make 4 out of 5 grand finals, that's like a Melbourne and Roosters are now. But they never put that Roosters team in.
No, it's very disappointing though when I look back, and we're in charge of the one in 2004, and that's the one that I really look back on. And then that was a bit of I feel like it was sort of a mirror of the club. I think things were falling apart a little bit. We'd had a lot of success for a long time, and things were just starting to crumble a bit. And we got to the front, and we should have,
Well, we hadn't lost leading in 4 or 5 years leading at half time.
Yeah, so we, that was disappointing. So the Penrith one, I don't wear the Penrith one as bad as I wear the Bulldogs loss.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
Because the Penrith one was one of those, slippery. Few things didn't go right for us, and I felt like it was just that was an unbelievable game actually, and because it was so slippery, I just remember our forwards and their forwards. It was the most brutal game I think I've remember ever being part of, where it seemed like the ball didn't ever get to really in front of me because it was that wet and slippery, and those blokes just absolutely hammered each other. That was brutal.
Yeah, I remember it was a hard game to get into as a ball player, because they were just at each other.
Terrible.
And it was really in the middle of the field a lot. Mate, your impact, did you know the impact you had on your teammates?
No, not really.
Yeah, because I got a couple of examples. I signed with the Roosters. You're my childhood hero. You come down to Canberra and spank us at Canberra. So I've signed about 2 weeks earlier. And we're shaking hands after the game, and I can see you a couple of blokes away going, I'm pumping myself up. This is Freddie's me here. I go to shake your hand and look you in the eye, and you looked me dead in the eye and just looked at me and went, very disappointed. I started sobbing. Simon Wolford was behind me and went, did he just say what I think he said? And I was like, and then another one was, you're the emotional barometer of our team. And I remember we played a game. It was my 4th game there, I think, in 2003. The Anzac Day game, Good Friday game. We'll play the Broncos, Good Friday. Yeah. And there was something about you, Fred, where like if I'm getting changed and I look over and number 6 is putting his jumper on, we're a chance today. That's how you'd make your teammates feel. You're a chance today because, number 6 is putting his jumper on, and you gave that confidence to the team. And I just remember warming up out the back of the footy stadium there, and you just led it. We were just pumped, and you were leading us, and we were leading us. And the first set, you got the ball tackled through and took a hit up. You're the 5'8" of the team. You're 106 years old at the time. You're and you go straight through it.
Yeah,
you go straight through it. You tipped out. I scored. It was like the fastest try in history. It was like 30 seconds into the game. It was just one of those games. You went, come with me, boys. And you did that a lot of your career, but. Did you know the effect it had on the players around you with not only your words but your actions? You were
not really. Well, the actions was something that I had a big looking at, and you would have seen like turning up and the things like getting to drinks and all that sort of scenario, which people would never understand. But the stuff when I spoke to you at Canberra was just we were serious.
Yeah.
A lot of people sort of go and most surely think I'm a footy player, but I understand what it's about. You got fans and you got a club and you got a process, and well, we're serious. We're a serious team, and we took it very seriously.
Yeah.
And whether it was through training, there would have been years where we just didn't have an off day of training. No. I mean, years. Not just talking about a day or a week. There was to the point where every training session, if you didn't turn up like it was a game, then you were being scolded and told to beat it, get out of here.
Yeah, I remember. The greatest thing that ever happened to me at the Roosters was Jamie Soward coming through because it took a bit of pressure off me with Ricky. Ricky would just hammer me. Remember we go to tackling practice down the beach. And you go, backs over there, front rowers over in this section.
Finch, you go with them.
Back rowers in this section, front rowers in this section. Everyone's backs, you go tackle each other. I'd be walking over the backs and he goes, and Finchy, you're with the front rowers. And I just get battered on the sand by the big boys and just smash me. But that it was you led the training as well. I remember me and you used to race each other to get to training first.
Yeah, get to training.
I didn't matter if I pissed the bed at 3 a.m. and I went out there, you were still at training. I could never beat you. And you did that every day, every session.
I made a rule. I live 10 minutes from training maximum, 10 minutes max. And I was in the city, sometimes if you had an accident or something, but I'd be in my car 1 hour before the session started. So I'd be out training 50 minutes at least before the session. I had this thing where you just sat there for a little bit, boots on, get on the field. Yeah. And then just the amount of sort of careers you extend by getting out there and just running up and down the field, passing the ball behind, an onside pass, and then just having little skills and muck around. It's amazing that those things that you do in that hour, I think ends up being, mostly 2 or 3 positions on the ladder. Just building relationships constantly. I remember Chad Robbo used to come out a lot. He'd be out there a lot earlier with me, just running up and down the field. And we'd do a dozen laps. By the time you finish, you're sort of sweating up, and but those blokes that are coming through, they go from someone who might let you down in a big game to they come out, they don't make errors, and they add value to your team and they contribute, and and that's the things that you work out as you get older, but. And, having people like yourself who understood what I was doing by running to the water and running back and sprinting constantly, constantly moving and thinking about the team and, getting everyone going, like that's what drives you. That's what drags the team to that next level. Yeah. Just everyone just, accepting what it's about. This is how we deal with it, and this is, let's go and do it.
Were you getting onto the field? Because we used to train down at Wentworth Park in the Oval in the middle of the greyhound track. And you getting on the field early caused a serious incident one day because you've gone out Tuesday morning and we weren't allowed onto the field Tuesday mornings because they had the greyhound practices, So we had to go out after 9. You were out there and Louis Lopez, our little gopher man, fills the water bottles up, gets everything ready. He's yelling at you, there's half a dozen of us, by the end, this is 04, I think, the whole team would be, you virtually turn the... everyone would be there early, so we're all out, and he's yelling at us to get off the field. Louis yelling at us, and we're yelling at him, going, he's telling us to get off the field, and the rabbit's gone. The hare's gone, and he's going, it's coming around. He's standing on the track, like on the rail, trying to tell us to get off the field. We're in the middle of the field. We're not going to get hit by the bunny, Louis. You're standing on the rail, and sure enough, the bunny comes around and just wipes him out. And then when they put him in the back of the ambulance, he's like, do it for me this week, boys. We said, you're going to be back at training tomorrow. It's not like you're dying, you're going to be here tomorrow.
I'm surprised he didn't die.
Well, he's still alive, Big Lou. He's one of the greats. But he said, when I said, we see you training the next day, it's like he's never going to see him again. But that was a tough team. And your leadership there, obviously that evolved because you're captain for a long time. The captain... It's not only representative level, but you're a captain of your club for a long time.
If you don't have people following and believing it, then you'll lose faith in it. Yeah. So it's not just about someone who can stand at the front and sort of set a bit of direction. Yeah. If you haven't got people that follow it, then eventually they'll get a bit of doubt and it just falls to crap. But the good thing was we found a lot of people there that were pretty motivated to win. We had really strong willpower, mate. Yeah. We used to go hard at training. You look at the players now; they're retiring at 37. I was 32 and I was gone.
Yeah, I was in survival mode from 21.
It was, we trained hard, and it didn't matter what age you were. You never missed a session, and that's just the way it was.
We get noodled up to train.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to get noodled to train.
Yeah.
I remember when I had 2 broken hands, I had to get 6 needles to train.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, thanks, Dick. Mate, 2004 you returned to Origin. You obviously spoke about that 01 year. Run us through that, the return to Origin. We win the first game. Game 2, Gus calls you in. There's a lot of pressure there. You haven't played Origin for a few years. Where was your headspace with that and your mentality?
No, it was good. Well, we'd had years of winning.
Yeah, at the Chooks.
Yeah, I was really confident. The fact I wasn't playing Origin through that period was mostly a bit of a sin, because I was at my I was at my most influential. Put it that way, like the way we trained and my sort of direction there, and
was it when that come in? Because I made game 2
and kicked the winning field goal.
No, that was
that
game 1. But the game 2 was my first game in Brisbane.
Oh, that's right.
Noddy pulled his hamstring. And Trent Barrett had a calf injury. Matty Orford had a hamstring injury.
Remember we stood together in the national
at the end, yeah. Well, as a kid, because you're my hero, I had a Fittler Origin jumper. And you were like 20 at the time, 21 playing Origin. And I was thinking, if I play Origin at like 21, you'll be 30, 31. And we'll room together because our both surnames are F. This is in my head. No one I've got weird. And then, and lucky enough for me, there's a few injuries there.
Well, for me too. It came down to injuries because I was there.
Yeah, and then it's because there's so many Roosters players in there, and you were club level, and we'd had success the previous years. I've got to start there, but
it was disappointing we didn't win that game.
We should have won. We were unlucky.
We were well in front.
22-20 or something. We got beat 22-18. A couple of penalty goals.
I think we were well in front, and they put a couple of kicks over to our right side.
Yeah,
although we were very unlucky.
Yeah,
that was a good footy team we had, and I think there was a few changes in the last game. I remember BK come back.
Baz come back into halfback.
BK, I'm pretty sure, and maybe a Gidley or no, Gidley wasn't. Gid wasn't.
No, Gid's come in for the third game, didn't he? No, Gids was game 2 with
Coops and
Gaz
was on the right.
Yeah.
So that was. I remember looking back on that game, just going, how Lockie actually he came up with a couple of kicks over the left. I was just thinking, how we had that game,
yeah.
And then I just knew we were going to smash them. I knew it was, they were coming down for a touch up.
And how was that to finish? Because 2001, you're retiring. It's that ANZ out at that great rugby league ground you love playing at in Brisbane, and Alfie returns, and you get spanked. And it was a real probably sour night to finish, and that would have been obviously 2004.
That was 2001, but that was just one of those awful. Just had an awful year.
But then you look at that to 2004 where you charge down the kick and you're under the post and there's 80,000.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a really good moment. But it was due to the fact, the team I was playing in, the Roosters, it just gave me so much confidence. I did it easy. I went out there and I was very comfortable and felt great and felt strong, and it was a great team. It was a good young team. So it was just an awesome experience to be part of it. Because unless I'm trying to think who got injured. Unless a few blokes got injured, because Timo might have got injured.
Yeah.
A few blokes I'd used in game 1, and then Gus just rang and said, look, we're a bit short. Yeah. So what a great experience, though. I can still remember it now, the whole incident at the end of the game. And really, we're up by that many. They couldn't have won anyway. So, it would have been great if it was a lot closer. It would have been much more dramatic. But the fact was that just having that little moment. But the best part of it was when I turned around. So I scored the try and come running back at the players, and they were all coming towards me. I just remember that, and they looked like babies.
Yeah, they were.
They were like babies,
Gaz,
even like Willie and Gaz. There was, I think, Luke Rooney, a few of those. Luke Lewis.
Yeah. The Mountain Cat.
Yeah, he was. Luke Lewis was a bit like you as a trainer. You could sort of register what I was trying to do. And Luke Lewis was the same. In those couple of Origin games. So I remember on the bus, I used to put my boots on the bus, and the moment the bus would stop, I'd just walk straight out and start training. And everyone else would sort of, want to chat and talk, and Luke Lewis regied, and he chased me down the field.
A couple of Penrith rats.
A couple of Penrith rats, exactly.
But I remember that Bedsy was obviously captain, but you could tell Beds, now he's young in his captaincy there, say something, look to you, or look the respect and aura you had in that team was huge.
Well, Bedsy tells me the story. I forget it, but he said the players were doing something at training, and he reckons I came to him and I said,
"Stop, change. That's
do you
not
put
good
up
enough.
with that? Do you put up with that?
Should I put? What's the answer? Yes or no?"
And then I walked away, and he sort of just went, "Oh."
Yeah.
So I can't believe you put up with that.
Yeah, I remember we played. Used to play 20 touches, like a bit of touch footy.
Yeah.
And it was my first training session, and you fired a ball at me, and I'd caught 1,000 balls a week off you. but some reason in Origin, this one got here quicker and it bounced off my chest before I could close my hands, and you just come up and go, Finchy, everything happens a bit quicker in Origin, brother. But it was. And for you to adapt at the end of your career like that, and just before we go, I think you could have played another couple of years. I look back I look at the end of my career. You played 330 odd games, all the tests, all the Origins. I'd played 270. How the Storm looked after me as you get older, and you sort of expect, I probably won't have to do that. You never missed a session. I look back when I was 21 and you were the captain, because you weren't playing. You'd stepped down from rep footy, so you're not going on a tour. You're doing all the preseason. We're kids. All the other sort of middle-aged players are away on tour, so there's a big gap between you and then us young blokes. You were doing sandhills. Yeah. You never missed a session. When I look back, there was none of that resting older players like they look after them these days, because you're still their best player by far.
But I think the Roosters were going, I think, through a mindset of we need to get a change going, and they sort of...
Well, that worked well, didn't it?
Well, they brought Braith in, and, Braith had a couple of really good years there. Had a good year there when I was coaching, also had a good year there in 2010 as well, so...
But I felt you were a great buffer between Sticky and the rest of our team. Because I remember your leadership. You were never, you play with some players when they're young, they're out in the drink and have a good time. When they're older, they start turning on the young blokes. Well, you shouldn't be drinking. Well, hang on, but you never were like that. You go, boys, how'd you go? Run me through it, Tell us a story, hold on, you make it up if you have to, and we'll sit there and talk about it. But then there'll be times we go, hey, Finchy or Minnie, boys, pull your head in,
That's a big thing of training.
But you respect that you weren't going.
Yeah.
You weren't going at us all the time. You had to tell us all about it. And then the other time, go, boys, I want you to have a quiet one. So we would. You had a great mix between that and then obviously dealing with Sticky and the pressure that comes from the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think if anything was. That's one thing we did learn, because they were rats. They were new at the game as well, and they had a lifestyle, a coaching lifestyle that they were looking after, and I just knew that. I had the best knowledge of how we were going, the players, just because I felt it firsthand and I knew what you were like and all the players were like. So a lot of the time, whether they were in tune with us and what we were doing or not, I always felt like we end up being in control of the sessions anyway. Like, they'd tell us what to do, but we'd always up the ante if we needed to, and we always had a good gauge of how we were going.
Remember the 4 in 5s?
Yeah.
The 4 laps in.
Well, I used to come last. They killed me.
Well, I remember a great one, our good mate Chris Walker, old Texas. We're about 20 minutes in the session, we look around and we're looking at each other. We've had a few beers the night before, so where's Texas? He's not here. Oh, I know. So he's missed the start of the session. So we're thinking, just don't turn up now, Texas. You see his Monaro come flying into the car park about an hour after the session. We're going, we look across at Sticky's nostrils are flaring. There's smoke. Texas runs out the field and Sticky just goes to the sideline. 4 in 5, boys. 4 laps in 5 minutes. We get over there, go. Texas just takes off. We look out, he's beaten us by about 40 metres, and Fitzy, I think, goes, is he wearing one boot? He was still that pissed he put one boot on. Anyway, he made the lap, and if one player didn't make it, everyone had to go again. Yeah. Well, George Rose didn't make it, so we had to go again. Guess the one bloke who sat there and sledged George Rose for not making it? Texas. Texas ripped into him. Said, mate, you got over. He said, mate, we wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for your walks. But we did train hard and we did have that. But Sticky was ruthless. I just remember, well, this was probably my fault. We had the bye weekend. We got pumped by the Bulldogs on a Friday night. I thought it'd be a good idea to go up to the Gold Coast with the boys. Sticky found out we went to the Gold Coast and he called us all into training Sunday.
Well, that was the time in Origin.
Yeah, you were out having a paddle. I remember when
I was walking down the beach. I remember Gus rang me and he said, you come play Origin. I said, yeah, that'd be cool, It'd be unreal. Anyway, so... Although, right, I had the shirt off. The weather was warm, I remember, and I'm just walking down the beach. I lived on the beach. And then by the time I was sort of just going to cruise into Origin, into camp. And Sticky rang me up and said, "Get in, you're all into training." And so I got in there and they flogged us.
Yeah, hammered us.
Mate, they flogged us. And then actually that game I was crook.
Made you about an hour late. Your press conference because you were coming back.
Mate, I ended up being
Sticky
crook.
didn't give a rat's ass. He goes, keep training. You're an hour late for your press conference.
My first Origin back, and after, so everyone went on the drink. I don't even know if I had a drink that night, but I ended up sort of spending a day in bed because I just got run down, and that was funny.
I remember that because I was 18th man for the third game and we had the bonding session up at the Clove Valley Hotel. We drank Sunday night, drunk Monday. It was Tuesday over. We had a thing for tuies or something at Chloe. And Gus goes, who wants a beer? Like I was 18 man, I thought, I wanted one. A few of the boys put up, the Roosters, we were big drinkers. Mason, the Dogs, Timo and the boys, the Rolls here, the Dragons boys loved a beer. But there's a few blokes who didn't want to drink. They had a couple of nights on the drink already. They said, and Gus goes, well, who doesn't want to drink? And then about 6 blokes put their hands up and they goes, well, you get to the bar and have a shot because they need that piss poor attitude into this team. But Gus was great in those camps. Run us through the difference from your camps from your first origin to your last.
We realised, what I was talking about before is once everyone wanted to be there and you had the best there, then it didn't matter what you did. And origin was more about, just finding something just to look after your mate. And because it got pretty fast out there, so you had to really rely on just, your instinct, and that's why those camps were so good, And even now when the players look at me sometimes and I say, yeah, let's go and get on a drink, they like, I say, we'll go to let's go to a bar or a nightclub. They like, you really want to go there? They used to drink it inside now in room,
Have you
seen
the great Freddie Fittler move? Let me tell you, I did the walkabout in Wigan. He was on fire.
Sitting in a room with 20 blokes drinking beer just does nothing for me at all. So we head out and get amongst it, go on, they all go, are you worried about getting in trouble? It's like, oh, if you're worried about that, how are you going to do with an origin game?
I remember the big Murray bus turned up in front of Scuba on a Monday night.
Oh, Scuba.
20 blokes would get off and staff and shoot down into the Scuba. The underground nightclub would just be going nuts.
That was awesome, that joint.
Just run through a couple of quick answers here, or a couple of just highlights or special players you played with. Career highlight. Could you separate or identify one? Besides playing with me.
Yeah, they're all good.
Yeah.
They're all good. I'll tell you what was really cool, playing nines. Yeah. Because I think as you get older, you sort of think, oh, can I do it?
Yeah.
I went back and I trained pretty hard. I was about 42. And my kids had never seen me play. And when I got out there in the middle of the field, I remember the New Zealand crowd were awesome. Because a lot of interest, I sort of got...
You're the first retired player to come back with.
So I'm walking down the side.
Well, how did that come about? Was it your idea or Robbo's idea?
Maybe Robbo, maybe. I'm not really sure, actually. Not sure.
So it looks something like you would come up with it.
Yeah, but I think when they did do it, and I was at that time where, when I just make sure I need a bit of motivation.
Yeah.
So I said yes and just started training. And I remember just breaking down all the time at training. Once you stopped,
it's hard to get going.
Mate, to sprint. Jogging's okay, but if you try to sprint, mate, things just fall apart. Yeah. So I was out with my daughter and I lived at Rushcutters Bay, so I loved the training and I got fit. And when I was out there, actually, if it wasn't for a few of our players dropping balls, I was on it was not.
You took an intercept, didn't you? You scored.
Well, that was late in the game, but it wasn't that hard. Nothing had changed. It's just like...
So there's poor blokes out there at 23 in their prime and it's hard. You're coming back at 42 and...
I didn't get tackled that often, let me tell you that. Yeah. I didn't get tackled. The tackling doesn't hurt, but I didn't get tackled that often and ended up having that good moment. And then... Because I knew where my kids were. And so where I got the intercept, my kids were up to the right. Because my young bloke had cut his tendon in his foot and he was in a wheelchair because he couldn't walk around. And in the same game, I actually smashed Ben Barber. I got him a beauty. Benny tried to take me on the sideline. It was just me and him in about 15 metres. But I could see Toops on the inside, Daniel Tupu. So I just knew if he stepped off his right, Toops was going to get him. So I just went in real aggressive, knocked his arm down, hit him straight across the head. It was the best.
The crowd went up.
Yeah, it was the best. So, and then I walked off, and when I took the intercept, all I wanted to do was get there. I had a torn quad. I tore my quad in the game before, and it was just getting...
You played with a torn quad?
It was just seizing up. Yeah. So anyway, I scored the try, and then I went back to my kids after the game, and Demi, being the girl, saying, "Oh, Dad, that try was great. That was so good." And then my young bloke goes, "Mate, that tackle on Benny Barber, that was awesome." And I just went, "Yeah,
that's the one you wanted."
Brother. I'm glad you noticed that because that was the moment.
Who's the toughest opponent you played against?
Joey.
Yeah,
Joey's. Competes. Alfie was always. He was hard to play against. Competitor. Laurie. Laurie was so hard to get hold of. I don't know if you look at Gordon as in people that might have bashed your head in. Yeah. But I don't, a couple of times you sort of got fiery with Gordon, but you don't. That never comes across your mind, But he was wild, Gordy. But I've got to say, Joey, Alfie, Laurie, they were good.
Your best teammate? Or teammate you love playing with? Because sometimes always I love playing with the Hoffy. Yeah. Now, I know you had a special relationship with Fitzy.
Yeah, well, Fitz was always on the inside. I like Peter Cusack.
Yeah, Yak.
That's something about the Yak, because the Yak never got any credit.
No.
And trained hard. So.
Played with an ACL, no ACL one.
Oh, it was ridiculous. But that team, those last sort of 4 or 5 years with the Roosters, they were so lucky. We had such good blokes, good fun.
The only time I've seen you and Fitzy really argue, actually, he was playing the Knights. Fitzy decides to start sledging and starts sledging the Mad Dog. Well, the Mad Dog he gets that fired up, he gets the ball, and because you're standing next to Fitz, you defend next to Fitz, he steams straight into Fitzy, and that means you have to make the tackle as well. We look across and here's Mad Dog walking with you and Fitzy around his leg, and you look up and Fitzy, you shut your mouth, don't you say another word to the Mad Dog.
But Fitzy was hilarious to defend it because he'd always want to go and smash everyone and jam in. But I could see them all gathering up in front of me, wanting to run at me. So I'd be constantly holding him back, and then he was just such a weapon, Fitz. So fit,
great, wasn't he?
So fit and so tough. Loved
to drink, trained hard.
Anything you said to do, he'd do, And if there was someone I could see running one out, like a forward, I'd just set it, he'd say, set him free, just go jam in, Fitz, and just make sure he had his outside. It was unreal. We had so many good players. We go to now the Origin.
What made you take on the role, first place? Because we obviously had no success really 1 year in.
All right, in 2000 and whatever, Peter Sterling asked me on the Footy Show. He said, "Would you coach Origin?" I'd been coaching the City team. And I said, "Yeah, why not?"
You had a bit of success there too.
It was good. I loved it. I loved coaching the City, and I just sort of, I just said, well, "Why not?" Just up for a challenge, and then that started the process. Like Laurie was always going to be the coach, and deserved it, and deserved a crack, and did a great job. And that set a process. I had to go and sit in my first job interview, which was weird.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what it's like going through job interviews. It must be awful.
Yeah.
So I sat in a job interview, and they come back and said, "You haven't got the job." But from there, what I did was I just set in a process that if I did get the job, I was going to be ready. So that's when I started doing. I started coaching the 16s and 18s, and also started doing those bike rides.
Yeah.
And just getting around the state as much as possible. And so I sort of said to Liz, I remember just saying, and we were the assistant coaches actually. Yeah. Trent did it for 1 year and I did it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I just knew that, I think part of anything now, especially Origin, because it's so big, is, the more you give back, the more you're going to receive. And I just had that in my mindset straight away, is that I'm going to start giving back now.
Yeah.
So I started doing all that bike riding and all that pathways,
all
which
that,
I love.
You do a lot of stuff. Is it Father O'Reilly down?
Yeah, so...
but even like your Hogs for Homeless, all that sort of stuff. Do you reckon that's contributed to the type of player? And you've spoken openly about players, the type of player, type of person you want in the team, and type of player you won't have in the team. And you've made examples of it, like with the Latrell losing his spot after game one. Do you reckon that's all that sort of stuff has obviously contributed to the success we've had and the strong position we're in at the moment?
A lot of those kids have come through the pathways. It was interesting talking to Bradman Best. So Bradman Best came through, and he actually spends time and goes and helps.
Yeah.
I think so much now. There's so much attention on them. Yeah. If they're not given something back somewhere, then they're gonna, their opinion of themselves is gonna be just not good for them. And whether they're playing good or bad, it's gonna affect them. So that's why that giving back's so important, and that's the one thing we just drive into them as 16, 18-year-olds. And this is how it is. We start with the process of first thing you do with a problem is do something for someone else, and if you can start with that process and that mindset, not only helps in a game of footy, but it helps in every part of your life. It just balances energy out. And, we drive them mad, these kids. I turn up and I'm sort of...
You're the most energetic bloke there.
Taking your shoes off and get the energy out of the earth, and then, do this and get the energy here.
Well, I've seen the boys were walking, close their eyes, they're walking blind. We used to walk home like that, but we would be blind.
I used to always lose my shoes. That might be something.
I remember we were looking for your shoes one day at Charo down at Queen's Park. He said, "Mate, coming up, we find your shoes." I said, "What do you do with your shoes off?"
I've got to go home. My missus, like, I've told my miss I'm coming, and I've lost my shoes for about the third time. She's
mate, the Origin, after game 1 we get beat last year. And I was one of. I remember questioning some of the change. Not question. I didn't understand some of the changes. Some of my former colleagues, where I formerly worked, who hadn't played Origin, hadn't really played much NRL, were quite critical of you. I remember sitting before the game. I just thought the player wasn't like the changes were so different to what the player was before that. Like a Whiten's in. And then you sort of look and you go, White, well, he's an Origin type player. All these blokes you brought in, we spanked them in the wet.
Yeah,
and then we win again. And I remember I come on, and one thing in the media I find, which I don't like especially where I was working at, there's no accountability. I'd say before games, I expect this team to win 30-0. They'd get flogged, and no one's going, well, you were wrong, or why were you wrong? So I made a point to come out and say, well, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And who was I to question the blokes who's had more success at Origin than anyone? You're the youngest player, youngest captain. Did that motivate? I know you don't pay attention to the media, but there's, after that first game, it was quite heavy, the criticism. Like they were talking Queensland going 3-0, you should have to go. We've turned around and won the series.
Yeah.
Now, did that motivate you?
I said, well, mate, there's a rule, and we've got some rules in camp, and they're very basic. But one of them is that there's no newspapers anywhere. I really encourage them to talk to the media, and I put it to the point where you're not talking to someone, you're talking to your fans. Yep. So when I talk to someone from the media, you use it like you're talking to a fan, whether it's an 8-year-old kid in Wagga or it's a grandmother at Katoomba, or they're the people you're talking to. But you don't have to read it. Yeah. So we don't have newspapers. I am totally oblivious these days of what is happening in the media. I don't have a news feed. I don't do social media. I would not have a clue unless I'm watching the news of what is actually happening. Yeah. And what that does, it'll freeze you up so much. Yeah. It frees your head up, frees your mind up. And what happens is it counters everything they're doing, because you know what? I walk in with my shoulders back. Yeah. I'm confident with what I've done. And all they can think of is, I've been driven mad and I'm going to get to this bloke and we're going to get him, we're going to break him down. And then they see the picture you walking in because you haven't heard a single word they said. Yeah. It's like, man, you're not going to affect me. I'm not going to listen to you.
I reckon you're a bit smoke and mirrors. With your role in the media, for people who don't know you, like, you're an absolute winner and you're as serious as anyone. Competitor, charismatic, and that's one thing I say. And the two best leaders I've played under are yourself and Cameron Smith. One, when I was young, you were my hero, so there's an age gap, but we're extremely close friends. We stayed close friends. Cameron Smith's a great mate, but I was 2 years older. One thing I always said about you two guys, and which happened coincidentally, Jordan said it in the documentary, the final dance, that when you guys never asked the teammates to do something you wouldn't do. You were taking the big hit-ups, you were taking the dirty runs, the tough runs. And with your coaching, do you let that roll a bit, the jovial, because it is the fun, Freddie, but...
They see both.
Yeah, as players, we knew when you were serious, and you were great to, like I said earlier, you could kick me up the arse, pull your head in, or you just tap on the shoulder, mate, You had that great balance, but...
it's harder as a
people
coach.
Who don't know you see the jovial side, and I go, mate...
It's much
this bloke's the most serious, he's a winner, he's as competitive as it comes.
It's hard. If I went back into club coaching, I'd have to change my personality totally, because you can't have both. It's too hard. To be have that jovial side and be mates with the players and join a joke with them, and you can't do it. There's no room. You need to be, you need to be firm. You need to be consistent, and it's hard to give that message that you saw me as a player when. I'm serious. Yeah. I'm serious about what we're doing. Yeah. We're doing it for these reasons, and we're going to do it as good as we can. Yeah. But it's very hard. Origin allows me a little bit of flexibility there, because I've got the best players. I have really good staff. And the setup is, to go with Origin, it's like you've got to go in relaxed. Yeah. You can't go in tight. You're going to get smashed. Yeah. So I understand that.
Yeah, I look at your staff there. There was a couple of other good mates of mine as well. The player you talk about, the person you talk about, that is, those guys, that represents what they stand for. Your Bedsies, your Fitzies, Ciro, those guys that are in there with you, Brandy.
Yeah,
that's it filters right through from
Absolutely.
staff to players.
My theory is I just don't let anyone in front of them that I don't respect and that I don't know.
That's why I wasn't allowed at training.
that doesn't love the game.
Yeah.
That's very important. Or in their own field, love what they do.
Yeah.
That's a really important thing. Love on what you do. Whether you're we have plenty of guests come through, whether they're ex-swimmers, we've had Arn Doe through, we've had all these different people, and we just make sure that's the one ingredient that is in every single person that comes in front of us, that they love what they do. That way you get, in the voice and the tone that, it doesn't matter what story it is, that you're going to get the love of it come through. And that's the stuff that drives you, They're the beauties, You end up... A great story, we had this bloke come through, actually. He was in an accident. And, mate, he had dead set.
Surely the accident wasn't the great story.
He had half an arm.
This is not sounding too great at the moment.
So he's sitting there telling us his story, all right? And he's been in a bad accident. It was to do with New South Wales roads and traffic. So he'd been in a bad accident. He'd had half an arm. He was burnt. Oh, no, he had half a leg. And he might have had, anyway, he's missing parts all over him. Anyway, great fella. Told this wonderful story and, it was really meaningful, and he spoke about how he loved footy. And then we went down to the Chloe, down to the Coogee and got on the drink. And anyway, so we're drinking and that, and we ask him what he wants. Do you want a bourbon? He sort of puts his hand up, and then what happens, he forgets, and he starts to fall because he's got no leg to hold him up. And I'm sitting there, and you couldn't help but laughing. He's looking at me laughing as he's about to hit the ground,
Well, one good thing is no matter how pissed you are, I've got no leg, I can't stand up, so that's at least an excuse if you fall over. Mate, Piercy, I know you're close with Piercy. You must have been, I know you're close with Nathan, must have been disappointed for Nathan to get injured in game 2, but you must have been happy to give Piercy that moment, and he got to be a part of a winning series.
To tell someone like Nathan that they're not playing, he was injured and he was going through a process and all that, but I really like Nathan because he's everything I love about the game. That's what he does. He just loves his team, knows why he's playing, and just goes out and plays every week. I just love that. But to be able to call Mitchell down, we asked him actually in the first 2 games, and he sort of shied away. I think he was injured and carried some injuries, but he shied away a little bit. I think, and to have him come down,
I'm not playing 3. I only want 1. One shot, 1 kill.
To have him, be part of that last try, and he's just copped so much. He's such a good fella,
isn't it?
Such a good little fella, and just tries hard, and loves the game. But to be able to him be part of that, and go on after the game, and just have a chat to him about it, and then watch him with his dad, and that was awesome. That was really cool. That's a great part of coaching.
Couple of questions to go, Fred. Obviously, the series this year is at the end of the season. How does that change the approach? Does it change with picking players? Do you have to stay on top of players with fitness? How's all that going to work?
We just stay in contact with the staff. So the league are getting back to us all the time with information, and we meet. We talk tonight.
What change about the type of player you pick?
Well, they've got to be fit.
Yeah.
We need fit players. So you can see what the league's doing this year. Blokes are falling apart. So you need fit players. It's going to be over 3 weeks, and then you can't bring people in. So you got a
squad
27, and you can only use 27. I used 25 last year, so it shows you you can get through them, especially, and that was with very few injuries. I think the only bloke to get injured out of game one, Nick Cottrey got injured out of game 1, and so did Payne Haas. Yeah. So they were 2 players that were changed due to injury.
Any bolters on the radar? You've brought a few young kids into that.
Penrith are
going good.
Penrith are going good, and I think I made the Australian team on the back of playing in a grand final. Yeah. Wally Lewis actually got injury.
Papua New Guinea?
He got tested, Wally Lewis, and they ruled him out with a broken arm in 1990. So that was the only reason I went, because I was in a grand final and Wally Lewis got ruled out. So
for the tour?
For the tour, yeah. And so that'll
you run us through?
That'll be the case.
Did you have the was it part of your contract? Is it true that you had the?
I had one eyebrow. No, that I've seen a photo since.
The whole
straight across.
But did the Panthers pay for your? They said we'll pay for your bill.
That was 94.
Your room bill, was it?
Yeah.
And then they didn't expect the room bill to come back, whatever it was.
Come back about 20,000. So.
But they're thinking it's going to be a couple of grand, beautiful
for the year. So actually, the funny thing was Gus, who was my coach, he did my contract. So I didn't have a manager or anything like that.
So on away games, was Gus coming into your room eating cheesels and getting ice cream because he could get it for free?
So that was the thing. They said, well, he's obviously hasn't got much money. He's going to spend whatever he gets. So why don't we give him a credit card and let him pay for just his room bills and stuff? So then they actually also, part of it was they paid for my mum to go on the kangaroo tour. So she went over there, had an absolute ball. But so I had a credit card. Then all the boys Reggie'd on.
So it's back to you. We know where the post nightclub drinks are going to be. What room it's in?
I remember him sending a thing over going, "Is this your signature?" It was Ricky Stewart.
Yeah, of course it was.
And buying bottles of bourbon.
Yeah, and Ricky would have cared heaps about someone else who had put it on the bill.
But the good story was we won the Test series and then we went to France. And so we stopped in at Paris. And there was only 3 people that stayed awake. Everyone else went to bed. And it was me, Steve Menzies and Laurie Daly. And we drank, I think it ended up being about 70 bourbons. We just sat there in front of each other and said, we're not going until everyone else came back, actually.
They slept and woke up.
Everyone else went and slept and come back, and there's me, Beaver and Loz. And the bill was like a $1,700 bill.
They said, how many blokes have been here?
And
3 of us.
Penrith sent this through and said, mate, it's got to stop. I said, well, there's 2 weeks to go.
Yeah, you know what? You would have been a great tourist. Just to wrap it up, Fred, who do you think will win? You've obviously got connections to the Panthers and the Chooks, and they're both going to be amongst them. Who do you think, if you had a tip, can you narrow it down to a couple?
Yeah, that's a toughie. I think Canberra are going to be pretty hard to beat. I think everyone sort of dodged that they beat. But it looks like Papali's the toughest bloke on the field.
Yeah.
So we'll see who stands up to him.
Well, mate, I want to thank you for taking time out to join me, mate. I know you don't usually do these very often, so if at all. So thanks for making the exception for me, mate, and I really appreciate your time.
No drama.
Thanks,
Good to
great
spend
one.
time with you.